Across several counties in Kentucky, Boone Trace may be found on both public and private lands. Before you explore Boone Trace, make sure which land you're exploring. And if it's on private land, make sure you get permission first. Enjoy exploring Boone Trace. This is Highway 30 down near Greenmount. That's the road to Jackson County, and back this way is the road to London. I've been here before looking for the Porter Cemetery and posted a video about it. I never did find the cemetery. But I returned here recently and not only found the Porter Cemetery, but I found some interesting historical information. We'll go back and show you the old cemetery and share with you what we've learned. The road right across from the Porter Cemetery that goes over through there is called Feltner Road. A long time ago, it was called the Hog Road. According to surveys and historic research, that was the path of Boone's Trace, and it came right through here, over this very spot, this culvert, and heads right up that direction. The original Boone's Trace, the 1775 Boone's Trace, that carried thousands of people, pioneers headed west and headed to settle new lands. I remember coming here once before, and I was thinking that this area right in here where some of these sunken spots in the soil could have been the old Porter Cemetery. According to Laurel County Historical Society, it contains about 8 unmarked graves, all family members of a Dr. Monroe Porter of Manchester. That's about the only description that we have. And I came down here with a friend of mine, Dr. John Fox, who is the administrator of BooneTrace1775.com. Check that website out. But looking back, you see the Feltner Road that makes its way that way. It comes right up through here and continues on. And we're going to travel this today and show you the old Porter Cemetery and parts of the old Boone Trace. You don't have to travel very far through the thicket until you see a clearly defined path. There is Boone Trace. Absolutely fascinating. Boone Trace was basically cut by Daniel Boone and a group of men with axes. It was never designed to be a wagon road. It was a hunter's path for men on horseback, largely cut with axes in 1775. Years later, the Wilderness Road was made in the 1790s. After Kentucky became a state in 1792, the Wilderness Road was made in around 1795. But there are sections of the old Boone Trace that still exist, and this is one of them. When you're on spots like this, it's just fascinating to think that you're walking exactly where Daniel Boone and his axemen cut a trail, and you're walking in the very same spot where tens of thousands of people traveled, headed for new lands and a new life. And the fact that the trails, parts of the trail still exist, is mind-boggling, really. When you get down and back into this country, and this of course is private land, but sort of opens up in some places, and then there's pasture land over here on the left and a big pond, but there's a little thicket area here in the middle that has sort of grown over, but the trail continues right up through here. Can't really see it well right here till you get beyond this overgrowth. But once you get beyond that little growth area, you can see the trail starts to open back up again, straight up through there. Definitely see the road continue right on. Look at that. Sections of this sure are wide enough to be a wagon road, but it's pretty good uphill right here for the old trace. Amazing. You get up in the woods just a little ways. It's the old road. Boone Trace heads up that way. And just a little ways over onto the left is the old cemetery. At one time or another, the county has been up here because there's another sign right here, Feltner Cemetery. And here's a grave, an unmarked stone, triangle-looking stone right there. And a lot of people will see this one and think it's another grave, but actually what that is a headstone there and a footstone there. So that's a single grave. And until you really start looking around, you'd think that might be the only grave here. But a dead giveaway this time of year, pardon the pun, is the jonquil flowers. They love to grow where there's cemeteries. Spotted them all the way back in through here, and then started spotting rocks and stones that are other graves. These are all unmarked graves. This one here has a shepherd's hook. Sometimes someone's put a shepherd's hook here, so there have been visitors here. There's some more graves. Oh, there's another grave. There's another grave. You can kind of see it better when I get down. Here's another grave. This is a headstone, and there's the footstone right there. Right there's the footstone. Here's the footstone. Fascinating. So the Historical Society book calls for about eight unmarked graves. That's probably about right. Here at the Porter Cemetery. Relatives of Dr. Monroe Porter. I don't know anything about Monroe Porter. Apparently, no one else does. Because the information on this cemetery is very lacking. But, my goodness. These graves could date back to the late 1700s, early 1800s. Well, there's no doubt that they do. And the roadbed to Boone's Trace, you can see it sort of raised up right there. And the Porter Cemetery, right here on the banks of Boone's Trace. Unbelievable. So, after having come here before looking for Porter Cemetery, Then coming down here with John Fox to explore this section of the trail, of the trace, the Feltner Cemetery right over here on the edge. What a great little historic spot. This oak tree right here beside the old cemetery is a beauty. Been there a long time. If you continue to follow this little section of Boone's Trace, it very, very clearly makes its way right on up through here. You can see the roadbed. And when you get up here to the top, you make your way up to the top to another cemetery that you enter into from another direction. This is the Feltner Cemetery on top of the hill. So the orientation is Highway 30 is back that direction. The Boone's Trace is coming right up through here. The Feltner Cemetery is about 3/4 of the way back down the hill on the right, going back down. But very clearly defined trail right there. In fact, it needs to be cleaned off to preserve the history of the old trail. Someone has actually put a sign up here, the Daniel Boone Trail. Now, if you can imagine going back in time to the 1770s, 1780s, 1790s, this thing would have continued right on out, which is the road that brings you into the cemetery now. And it would have made a sort of a westward turn and headed toward Hazel Patch, down below Hazel Green School, and toward where the Boone's Trace intersected with Skaggs Trace, near what was known as the John Woods Blockhouse. But this little section of trail is just very, very well defined right here. Really all the way up. I'd love to see this get cleared off. Maybe we could get some people together to do that. So that's going to about wrap it up here from Highway 30 and Boone Trace and Feltner Cemetery. Thanks for watching.